Trump, who's trying to get rid of abortion everywhere. Like JD Vance said, I want to make it illegal nationwide, right?
Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Really appreciate you clicking on this one because what you're about to see is absolutely wild. So in this video, we've got Soy Pill sitting down with Tim Pool and John Doyle for what's supposed to be a conversation about masculinity and liberalism. But it turns into something way more intense when Soy Pill starts questioning whether Tim is actually the liberal he claims to be. The entire exchange becomes this back and forth where someone who says they hold progressive values has to explain why they keep voting for candidates who oppose basically everything they claim to believe in. And the answers, or lack thereof, are pretty revealing. You're definitely going to want to stick around for the whole thing, because this builds in a way where each answer creates more questions than it solves. And hey, drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from today. I always love seeing how far these videos reach. All right, let's get into it.
What is that?
It's
my
vibe
from watching what I have, and I'll grant you this, I don't watch a lot of your show. I watch pieces, and I probably watch a lot of clips that are out of context, but like it really seems like you mostly align with like right-wing stuff, even if your morals don't. Right-wing, like you voted for Trump in 2020, right?
So what does the vote of a person mean for your policies, your politics, and your
well, that you agree with the
Is Tulsi Gabbard a liberal or conservative?
Right now, she's conservative. She used to be, insofar as
RFK Jr. liberal or conservative?
Well, hold on. Let's talk about Tulsi Gabbard, right? Like, she had a very big right-wing shift. She was someone who was, what was it, in 2017? She was like, off fossil fuels, right? She was like a green person. Like, she was like more environmentalism. Now she's with a party that's promoting fossil fuels that doesn't do these green, like, initiatives. So she is moved to the right. It's not as if the left shifted around her.
Hold on. But that's a question of fact, right?
Right. She is more right-wing now.
But what I'm saying is, like, you're asking about someone advocating for a fuel source.
Right.
So right is your argument that right and left don't define political philosophies?
A left-wing person is more likely to support some sort of Clean Energy Act. Tulsi Gabbard used to do that. She's no longer doing that. That is a shift to the right.
Question, right. So the question I'm asking you is, you define left and right not based on
policies. It's
not based on philosophies. It's based on fact, like worldview.
Based on the policies that they support.
Is RFK Jr. a liberal?
I think he was kind of like a crackpot, slightly environmentalist person, but he's never been like a prominent liberal Democrat, and now he's supporting the anti-vax crowd, I guess. So
I guess my question is, I'm trying to ask you, like, like, how do you define liberal and conservative?
Yeah, based on the policies. So like progressive
so what
taxes,
policies am I
environmentalism, like, well, that's why I'm asking you. Like, I think if you vote for Trump, like, what policies of his do you support that are liberal policies?
Getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, no new wars.
Those aren't liberal policies. Getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse.
What do you mean? Bill Clinton led the charge on waste, fraud, and abuse.
Saying that we should make something better is not the same as, hey, let's cut the entirety of the education department and the
Is Bill Clinton a liberal?
Bill Clinton is a liberal, but
Bill
he would
Clinton
not do
and
what
Al
I just
Gore
described, which is what Trump is doing. So, like, this isn't the same thing.
Getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse, cutting back on
You can say vaguely,
bloat.
I think we should make things more efficient. Probably everyone would agree with that. But when you see what it's borne out in the Trump administration, that's very different from what Bill Clinton did. Like, these are not the same things at all.
He did a lot more, yeah.
No, he didn't do a lot more. You can say he made things more efficient, but this is not the same thing as I cut the entire Department of Education. I'm cutting USAID. These aren't the same thing. You can't umbrella these as, oh, this is the same kind of policy, especially when the policy is so vague as I'm making something more efficient.
So traditional liberal, not classical liberal. Classical liberals like Locke and, they're more like libertarians.
Sure.
Traditional liberal as a political term tends to describe the Democrat view from the 90s, which was abortion, pro-choice, safe, legal, rare, secure borders, no illegal immigration, workers' rights, workers' protections, and cutting the size of government.
When you say no illegal immigration, like, what do you mean? Like let's pick some of these. Like in the 1980s, right? Like Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, H.W. Bush, I think, are arguing about like illegal immigration. I think the question at this town hall for this debate was like, hey, what do we do for the kids of illegal immigrants? You can look up this video, and it's like they're kind of almost like out-liberaling each other. One says like, look, I don't like the idea of illegal aliens in my country, but these kids are here, and I don't want to deprive them of this education. I don't want them to be seen as criminals. Like, this is the Republic.
Okay, so Tim calls himself a traditional liberal. And right away, you can already see where this is going. Because the moment you hear someone say that while voting for the most right-wing candidate in modern history, you know something doesn't add up. And this is exactly what happens when people try to rebrand themselves without actually changing their positions. The Tulsi point is perfect because it shows exactly what we're talking about. She went from supporting environmental policies to aligning with a party that actively promotes fossil fuels. That's not the political landscape shifting left. That's her moving right. And when Tim tries to deflect by saying it's just about fuel sources, he's missing the entire point. Environmental policy is a core liberal value. If you abandon that, you're not liberal anymore. But here's where it gets really interesting. When asked what liberal policies the administration he voted for actually supports, Tim says getting rid of waste, fraud, and abuse. And the response is immediate. Bill Clinton tried to do that too. But there's a massive difference between streamlining government and completely gutting entire departments. One is reform, the other is demolition. You can't just slap the same label on two completely different approaches and pretend they're the same thing. That's not how policy analysis works. That's just word games.
Republican Party in the 80s saying, I support at least
The Republican Party up to 2015 was for open borders.
Not open borders. That's a very different thing. These people are like, we need to secure our borders and we need to do something for these illegal people here, but I don't want to get rid of them.
Okay,
versus
point being,
you're describing well, hold
I'm
on.
not talking about the 80s. I said traditional liberal.
Right, but this is Republicans past the 90s, and you're saying you're a Democrat from the 90s. The Democrats were more liberal than the Republicans were in the 80s, but you're not. You're not there.
90s,
you're voting for the guy who says mass deportation now.
2008, Hillary Clinton called for a border wall.
Okay, that's very.
I'm not talking about the 80s.
Having a border wall is very different from, hey, let's deport every single illegal.
Barack Obama was called the deporter in chief.
Yes, and he also did DACA. Do you support DACA?
No.
Why not?
Because you're an illegal immigrant.
Right. So isn't this
and you're not
so
violent?
You don't support Democrats from 20 years ago?
No, I think it's the idea that you would support literally everything everyone does all the time is a weird cultist mentality.
No, sure. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm saying your
right, so
politics
I am
align
a liberal
with Trump today because Trump is a right-winger. He's not a liberal.
So Trump was called a moderate when he first ran.
Okay.
He is politically moderate to this day.
In what way?
Well, he got a lot of flack.
What is politically moderate about mass deportations? What is politically moderate about
Look at what other regimes have done to illegal aliens throughout history.
I'm talking about
America Barack
today.
Obama was the deporter in chief.
He's not.
In fact, liberals
he did
right
not
now
advocate for mass deportations of every single illegal in the country. That's just
and
not
liberals
what his
right now are
policy.
bragging about how Joe Biden deported more than Donald Trump is.
He did DACA. This is completely.
Joe Biden
different
deport
from,
more than Donald Trump?
Probably, yeah. If you look at the statistics, but well, first of all, we're in the first 6 months. He's probably his idea is the platform that he ran on that you voted for. Did you vote in 2024 for Trump as well?
For Trump.
Yeah. He was, hey, let's get rid of every single illegal immigrant. That is not Obama's policy. That's not Joe Biden's policy. That's not liberalism from the 90s. It's not liberalism from the 2000s.
You're isolating a single point and saying that hereby determines.
Okay, well, let's move on to another point.
This is why I say the left is cults. This is a cult. It's like.
Well, I'm just asking, what makes you a liberal?
I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-progressive tax.
But then you voted for Trump, who's trying to get rid of abortion everywhere. JD Vance said, I want to make it illegal nationwide. Right?
And Donald Trump got tremendous flack from the pro-life side, who were saying Trump is not pro-life.
In 2016, sure.
No, in 2024.
They said he's not pro-life enough?
Yes, okay. and they were saying don't vote for him.
Okay, and now the party that you voted for is attempting to. Well, okay, John, do you want abortion to be legal across the whole country?
Yeah.
I think it's a majority of the Republican Party is majority for illegal in all cases.
That's not actually.
You ever hear of a moderate?
No. So
I know what a moderate is. I'm saying that you're voting for the party that wants to make this. Well, because that's not a liberal position. You're voting for the people that want to get rid of abortion.
Voting is not a political philosophy. It's who you choose to best represent your views.
That would, if you vote for Trump and then called yourself a progressive, I'd be like, in what way? And then you say, well, my views are all this, but I'm voting for the party which will materially make all these things the opposite of what I want. How are you a progressive?
Because my biggest priority is probably anti-intervention.
Okay.
I'm going to say it again. Y'all are a cult.
What was cultish about what I just said?
You can't. So I'm a reformer, not a revolutionary. Okay. And I say this all the time because the left is a cult.
Okay.
That means Trump does bad things. And I go, yeah, well, I'm going to win here, 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 and here. And I'm a reformer. And I want those reforms more than I care about other things.
Okay.
That tends to be the average voter, largely on economics and immigration. The left is like, but how could you possibly vote for Trump if one thing is bad?
Well, it's not one thing. I'm asking which liberal policy has Trump implemented that is aligned with your
anti-intervention?
Liberalism? Okay, so
the neocons my whole life were pro-intervention and pro-war.
Yeah, Iraq War.
And I didn't vote for Trump in 2016, but he didn't start any wars, and he set timeline for withdrawal from
escalated the drone strikes from Obama and changed the
during a withdrawal. Indeed, right.
The withdrawal of
the reason why Donald Trump escalated drone strikes was because we were pulling troops out of the Middle East.
Sure, but he killed more people in that area with drones and changed the reporting and changed the report. Well, okay, are you anti-interventionist because you are afraid of the death and the destruction, or are you just like, oh, we shouldn't be located here? Donald, I can be in America and I can send missiles into another country.
Donald Trump's policies in his first term extending even to now, have been the gradual rescinding of U.S. military might in foreign entanglements.
I'd say mostly that checks out.
And that was the liberal position for 30 years of my entire life and every protest I ever attended. And now the Democrats are pro-war.
So now we get to DACA. And this is where the entire traditional liberal claim completely falls apart. Because when asked if he supports DACA, Tim just says no. No explanation, no nuance, just no. And here's why that matters. DACA was literally designed to protect people who were brought here as children, who had no choice in the matter, who grew up American in everything but paperwork. If you're against that, you're not taking a traditional liberal position. You're taking a hardline conservative position. And then comes the cult accusation. This happens every time someone gets backed into a corner on their inconsistencies. Instead of addressing the actual question, instead of explaining how voting for a party that wants to ban abortion nationwide aligns with being pro-choice, he just calls the other side a cult. That's not an argument, that's a deflection. Because the question being asked is actually really simple. How do you claim to hold all these liberal values while consistently voting for people who actively oppose every single one of them? The anti-intervention excuse gets brought up, and okay, let's talk about that. If that's your only priority, then just say that. Say you're a single-issue voter who cares more about foreign policy than anything else. But don't call yourself a liberal when you're willing to sacrifice reproductive rights, environmental policy, immigration reform, and progressive taxation just to get that one thing. That's not liberalism. That's just prioritization. And there's a difference.
Pro-war?
Oh, come on. How much you want to give Ukraine?
That's not pro-war.
Do you want to give Ukraine?
Hold on, let me give an example. If I'm not like a pacifist, but I never in my life hope to ever kill anyone. However, if someone breaks into my house, I'll blow them away, right? If I'm not sure.
If someone invades the United States, I will join the military in 2 seconds.
Exactly, right? So like, it's not pro-war to say, hey, we don't want new wars to start. However, if Russia invades Ukraine, then we should give them like money or weapons to stop that from happening. That's like a defensive
pro-war.
measure. Why is that pro-war?
Because
the war didn't get started. It's not like America's like, go commit war.
Here, I love this. Let's try this. Gentlemen, a foreign nation 12,000 miles away has invaded one of their bordering neighbor states of 29 million people. We need to send special forces, military training, ATACMS missiles. We need to provide intelligence. We need to sink the flagship of their Black Sea fleet and make sure they win this war. And we're going to make sure American PMCs are on the ground aiding them. And I'm like, y'all are pro-war.
Why is that pro-war if we want to help an ally when
not an ally.
When a war was started by
Ukraine's not an ally.
Else?
They're not an ally of ours. They've never been a formal ally of NATO or the United States.
Yeah, so they're not in NATO. That doesn't mean we don't support their common goals. That doesn't ally doesn't mean like officially we described it like on this.
What should we do if a nation we are not aligned with bombs our energy distribution lines?
Are you talking about the Nord Stream pipeline stuff?
I'm asking you a basic question.
If an enemy or a friendly nation does that?
I didn't say friendly nation.
If an enemy nation does it.
I didn't say enemy nation.
If just a nation did that.
If a nation bombed one of our distribution systems for our allies' energy, what should we do?
It depends on why they did it. Because if you're talking about
cut off our access to energy.
Yeah, so like the idea, this concept of like, I think the theory is that Ukraine did it to escalate our tensions with Russia so that we would support them more. Like that's the theory behind that, right? Like, and we should, if that's the case, that yeah.
I asked you a question about if a nation.
We both know what we're talking about,
Indeed,
right? We're
so
talking
answer
about
the question, and then we'll carry on.
Yeah, if the case is that they did that, if that's what ended up happening, it's like, oh, okay, like this country tried to sabotage us to make us do something. That's probably a bad thing. We should punish.
And that's what Germany is accusing Ukraine of doing.
Germany's accusing Ukraine of the Nord Stream thing, right?
Germany has issued an arrest warrant for one Ukrainian who they said was accompanied by 2 other Ukrainians to bomb the Nord Stream pipeline for the purpose of cutting off NATO access to energy, so that Russia would stop getting the resources from Europe, which benefits them. I don't want to say the singular source funds the war, but it provides them with resources in war. So Ukraine attacked a NATO ally because they were trying to cause harm to Russia.
I don't know if we know this is fact, and this is...
That's fine. You know what? I don't care. Our ally asserted it, and we should be aligned with NATO, not Ukraine.
If Germany asked us, hey, can you? First of all, Germany supports Ukraine, but if Germany said, hey, can you punish them for this? Then I think that maybe we should listen to Germany if they did that. Well, the idea that we should, the idea that we should pull out of Ukraine because of this.
Now you're pro-war, dude.
How is this pro-war?
We should not be involved in some other country's war.
Why not?
They're not an ally of ours.
But they literally are an ally.
No, they are not. That's fake news.
We helped them sign the agreement to give up their nuclear bombs.
That's a memorandum, not an alliance treaty.
Yeah, just because you legally didn't write the word ally down doesn't make it that, hey, we did not
something called
promise a security guarantee for you,
treaty
right?
alliance we do not have with Ukraine.
Are you saying that if we make a promise to a
you're
country...
pro-war. You're pro-war. Bro,
Well,
you are in favor of foreign war and our involvement in it. Yes or no?
I am in favor of defending a country that was attacked by another country if that country had security guarantees. Well, I know you're not.
You're pro-war.
Why is that pro-war?
Do you think the U.S. should be involved in Ukraine?
This is the moment that really exposes the entire framework. Because calling support for Ukraine pro-war is one of the most dishonest framings you can possibly use. And the home invasion analogy makes this crystal clear. If someone breaks into your house and you defend yourself, nobody calls you pro-violence. You're responding to aggression. That's fundamentally different from starting the conflict. And this matters because there's a real historical precedent here. When we talk about security guarantees and international agreements, we're talking about the foundation of how peaceful nations interact with each other. After World War II, the entire international system was built on the idea that agreements between nations actually mean something. That when you promise to help defend a country in exchange for them giving up their nuclear weapons, that promise has to be real. Otherwise, the entire framework collapses. So when someone says they're not an ally, they're technically correct in the narrow legal sense. But they're missing the entire point. We made a commitment. We signed an agreement. We told them to give up their nuclear deterrent because we would help protect them. And the moment we turn around and say, actually, that doesn't count, we've just told every other nation on Earth that American promises are worthless. That has consequences far beyond this one situation. But here's what really gets me. The accusation of being pro-war gets thrown around while completely ignoring who actually started the conflict. Russia invaded. That's not debatable. That's not propaganda. That's just what happened. And when you frame defensive support as pro-war, you're essentially arguing that the only anti-war position is to let aggressors do whatever they want. That's not anti-war. That's just pro-appeasement. And we know from history exactly where that leads. So what do you guys think of this? Leave your thoughts down in the comments. Please like and subscribe, and I will. See you in the next video.